Welcome to our presentation. My name is Kim Bussey. I'm the Key Relationship Manager here. We're going to get started in just one moment, but I want to take care of a couple of housekeeping rules first. If you will direct your attention to the top of your screen, there is an icon with a hand raised. You can either raise your hand. If I say something that you agree or disagree with, go ahead and let me know if you need me to speak up a little bit or speak a little softer. Maybe I need to speed up or slow down. You can let me know by selecting any of those icons. Because it is coming through your computer speakers and your headphones, I cannot hear your great responses and your applause. So go ahead, and if I say something that you like, you can laugh with me, you can applaud me, and we're going to get started. The webinar is being recorded. So follow up if you aren't already with Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and you'll receive some notifications not only about when the recordings are available, but also about different things that we have. We have some great blogs going on out there, our newsletter, and all of that comes through our social media. I have Carrie Bennick here with me today too. She is my silent but surprisingly superior partner. She handles all of our tech issues. She says hi through the chat box. Also, as you get questions and comments, go ahead, type them in there for me. Carrie's going to be helping me fill those questions. We will have a Q&A at the end, but once you got a question, go ahead and ask it. We may not address it immediately, but we do see it. Also, don't worry about frantically taking notes because we will have this presentation available for download at the end of our presentation. So we're talking today about authentic communication and really what that is, but more importantly, how is it going to fuel your employee trust and engagement? As leaders, as managers, we always want to have that communication. But we're going to talk about today is that there are 3 trust killers that will kill that engagement, that will damage that employee trust. Throughout the presentation, we're going to be talking about some tips to take, some tools. And I really want to discuss first and foremost of when you hear the word authentic, what do you think about? Go ahead and type it in that chat box and that says please share your questions and comments. Our webinar is going to be really interactive today, so go ahead and let us know what you think. Olive says genuine, truthful. I'm seeing genuine and truthful coming up. Stephanie, one of a kind. Thanks. Diane says honest and sincere. I'm detecting a theme here. It's all about being genuine, honest, truthful. Love that. Pam is like real. I want real communication. And one of the things that we see, Rob says authentic is a cultural buzzword, and it is. We want trustworthy. But when you think about authenticity, you automatically think of something that's real, that when you see it, you can put your trust in it, that you understand it. And think about it, everyone has that internal baloney meter. You get that feeling in the pit of your stomach, something's not quite right when someone isn't being completely honest with you. But what a lot of people are doing now is using the word authentic as a way to excuse their bad behavior. And I want to address that before we even go any further during the presentation. Authenticity is not an excuse not to use polite, common etiquette standards. And what I've heard is, I'm just keeping it real. I'm telling it how it is. Just saying what I need to be. Or my personal favorite is, I don't mean to be offensive. If you have to start a conversation that says, I don't mean to be offensive, then you know what you're about to say is going to offend someone. Use that filter to say, how can I rephrase this so that it isn't offensive? You can still speak the truth. You can still have that authentic communication without being rude. We're going to talk about that. Love this quote by George Bernard Shaw that says the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Go ahead and raise your hand if you have ever walked away from a conversation thinking one thing and the person that you were talking with had a completely different take on the conversation. I am seeing hands raised all over the place. I've been a part of it. And unfortunately, sometimes I've been the one who's been speaking it and starting the conversation thinking, wow, everyone's great. We're all together on this. And then, nope, we take a completely different turn about that. Real quick poll question for you. Remember, I said it's going to be interactive. So while we're doing this, I want you to think about what color do you associate with Monday? One word. But when I say Monday, what color are you thinking about? There's a chat box up here at the top. Go ahead and write that in. So I'm seeing some blues and some yellows. If I can get you to type it up at the top instead of that box. Thank you, Karen and Kevin. Follow their lead. Hit that top box. So blue, greens, yellows, red. Blue is coming out ahead. Black. Why is that? In the box to the bottom right, why are you choosing that color? Lavender. I love that. Gray, red. It's all the same day, but we're seeing while there's some commonalities, there's some differences. So Connie says she's thinking of blue skies, and Tamisa, and I apologize if I just killed your name, says it's a new star of the week. Diane's like, Blue Monday. I have to go back to work. Angela, Mondays are so busy. I like that. Kevin says it's green. It's a fresh start. It's the beginning of the week. Once again, it's something common that we all understand, but our perceptions are different. And that's the same thing with our authentic communication and how we trust and employee engagement. My perception of the situation may be different, and your perception colors everything that you say, everything you see, and everything that you hear. And to the person that you're speaking to, it's the same thing. They filter everything that they see, hear, and say through their perception filters. And it's very different. Even for those people that chose the exact same color, it meant something different. Blue, blue skies, bright day, ready to begin. For other people, it was blue because, kind of sad having to get back into work. We need to understand that to start that employee engagement, you have to understand their perceptions. And the biggest perception from most employers or managers is that employees are looking for money. But in a recent survey, what they're really looking for is significance, feedback, learning, development, and trust. All of that can be directly related to how they're communicated. In a 2015 Virgin Plus Labor of Love survey, they interviewed 1,000 employees who were throughout Canada and the United States that weren't a part of the Virgin Plus organization. And this is what they found out. 60% of those employees said that relationships with employers positively impacts their focus or productivity. 60%. And it's the relationship. The foundation of a relationship is authentic communication. The same group of 1,000 employees, 44% say that this relationship with their employer positively impacts their stress levels. Let's think about it. Think about the team that you work with. You're in the trenches with them every single day. And a lot of times we spend more time with our work family than our actual family. Waking time, I should say. So if our significance, if our communication, if we're building this trust level, if we're building a relationship where we may not always agree, but you can trust me when I say what I say, and I'm going to do what I say. I have your best interest in heart, whether I'm giving you positive feedback or constructive feedback. It's going to help your employees. It's going to help those people that may directly report to you to want to be with you. By show of hands, how many of you have ever worked with someone that you absolutely hated talking to? Maybe it's because they didn't understand what you were saying. It seemed like you were completely speaking different languages, kind of like men are from Mars and women are from Venus. Every single one of you, it looks like, has raised your hand. But I'm going to tell you right now, you can't avoid them. You really have to start that communication. And communication starts with you, regardless of your position. Now, I'm going to be speaking a lot from the perspective of a leader, of a supervisor, manager, someone who has direct reports. If that's not your role in your company, that's okay. Think about how you respond to your peers to peers. So let's talk about the number one first trust killer, under communicating. In the absence of information, rumors thrive. Think about an experience that you've been a part of where maybe business seems a little bit off, or there's an open position, someone's moving into it. What happens if you're not communicating it to your team? They begin to spend a lot of mental energy and a lot of verbal communication talking about what's happening. So, who do you think is going to get that position? Where are we going to go? And a lot of leaders seem to think that, oh, well, I send out information. Well, there's a difference between information and communicating. And a lot of times people really use those two words interchangeably, but they are very, very different. Information is giving out. Communication is getting through. We want to focus on communication. And I'm going to go ahead and say right now that it is okay if you don't know the answer. And by communicating, I don't know the answer to that question from time to time is a good thing. It helps build that trust. It helps keep them engaged. And sometimes as leaders, we just can't tell the person the answer to what they're asking. Maybe it's an HR issue. Carrie does not do her job at all, and I'm tired of carrying her weight. When are you going to get that fixed? When are you going to fire her? As a leader, we know we can't say, well, at 2 o'clock today is when it's going down, and poor Carrie's sitting in her office and has no clue what's happening. Confidentiality, you have to keep it quiet. And I see people are saying, oh, that's my life. Our goal is to communicate. I understand the frustration. Show some empathy. We are working on coaching. We're working on understanding. As soon as I'm able to tell you something, I will. At this point, I can't tell you anything, but trust me that I understand where you're coming from, and I will take care of it. Sometimes it's just that acknowledgement of that pink elephant in the room. Business is bad, layoffs are coming, or maybe another department's just been laid off. There's nothing quicker to strike fear and kill employee engagement than under communication. I know it's a tough time. We're going to work through this. Or maybe they're doing a great job, but you're just not telling them about it. That falls under taking them from that engaged employee to someone who may be disengaged. So, real quick question for you. How much of our waking time is spent communicating? Do you think it's 18%, 33%, 70%, 97%? How much time do you think? And then After you answer that quick poll question, tell me what are some of the ways that we communicate with each other. Maybe it's through technology or social media. Maybe it's through talking, things of that nature. See about, oh, we have a couple more people. So about 47% of you say about 97% of our waking time is spent communicating. It's actually 70%. And that communication includes reading, talking, listening, social media, and I'm seeing a lot, meetings. Oh no, not the dreaded unproductive meeting. How do we make those meetings a little bit more productive? Electronic, I'm seeing verbal, email, listening, body language. Absolutely, we're going to talk about that nonverbal and that body language. Texting and social media. Think about what we've seen in the past few years with cyberbullying. Social media has really taken away that face-to-face conversation that we have. Things that we would never say to a person's face is now becoming acceptable to post on websites, to post on social media, Facebook, through email and texting. That's killing our authentic communication. But before we can tell you, you've got to be an authentic communication, you're probably thinking, great, Kim. Yeah, wonderful. How? Well, the first thing that you want to do is to understand your communication style. All of us communicate, but how we communicate and what comes naturally to us is very different. Here at Omnia, communication style can be boiled down into two categories. You have your relational communicator versus the analytical communicator. There are neither one. There's not one that's better than the other one. Both of those communication styles have their own strengths and challenges. And as we start talking about those strengths and challenges, I want you to think about how you communicate. Are you that relational people person? I like to be around people. They energize me. Some people call them the extroverts, but it's even more than that. Are you more that fact-based driven person? I can be in my office and be okay with it, working on reports. In fact, you know, people tend to wear me out. You might be a bit more analytical. And this is what I hear all the time of, oh, I'm analytical, so you're saying I'm not friendly. That's not what I'm saying. I've seen some relational communicators who can be not so nice and not so friendly. And I've seen some of those analytical communicators who are extremely friendly. However, how that friendliness is determined and how it is shown to others is very different. So for that relational communicator, think about Oprah. If you've ever seen her show, some of my favorite ones is when she's having her My Favorite Things episodes. And she just displays to everyone, this is what my favorite thing is. So I love this lip balm. And I have a present for everyone. Reach underneath your seats and you've got the keys to a new car. That's more of that relational communicator. Some of those strengths are they're enthusiastic, they're people. They're motivating feedback. And Anne, you're right. A leader must be able to adapt to both types because what's authentic to one type of communication comes across as phony and fake to the other type of communicator. But more importantly, a leader has to know what their communication style is. Because before they can adapt to someone else, they have to know this is who I am, this is how I communicate. What are my challenges? How can I adjust how I can communicate to create that genuine connection to everyone on my team? Some of the challenges of that relational communicator is active listening. We are so excited that you're here and I'm happy to talk with you. And you just said something that I just want to give you some praise about or I want to respond to. So now my ears have turned off and I'm just waiting for your mouth to be quiet. and they may overtalk you or interrupt. How does that make that other person feel? It makes them feel like what they're saying is unimportant. Also, concise communication. I have a 20-year-old daughter who will come in and start telling me a story that goes a little bit like this. Oh, I can't wait to tell you what happened in my internship class today that I took. I was at Miss Bridget's kindergarten class. Well, this morning I woke up and I was running a little bit late. And so then I had to jump up and get dressed, and then Kayla had taken the shoes I needed to wear, and now I had to go find my shoes. And so I just took a pair of Kayla's shoes, which I was kind of worried about because, I was teaching, so I was going to be on my feet all day, but I finally got it. And then Leslie had moved the car, and I didn't know where she moved the car, but I finally got the car. And then I went to Miss Bridget's class, and we were going to do reading. And as we started reading, we started to read this one book. It was a Dr. Seuss book. You know how much I love Dr. Seuss? Oh, I love the One Fish, Two Fish. Remember how I always used to read left foot, right foot? For some of them, you have probably already tuned out. For my daughter, I'm thinking, and I'm relational, but I'm thinking, land the plane. Can you just get to the point? For some people that are relational, they're listening and they're right there with you and they're like, "Yeah, tell me more. Oh my gosh, I can't believe she moved the car. Were you on time?" But for other people, they're just like, "Okay, I'm looking at you, but my mind is now checked out." And either internally and sometimes externally, I'm rolling my eyes. I'm thinking, can you just get to the point? Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and check my laundry list. My feelings of frustration are increasing because you're wasting my time. Knowing if that's your communication style, when is that appropriate and when is it not appropriate? Who's going to appreciate that? How you motivate someone who is that enthusiastic people person is giving them the enthusiasm. Carrie, thank you so much for all the work that you've done for me. I am so excited. I'm glad that you're here today. We are going to have a great conversation. Moving on. Great job. Thank you, Olive, for giving me some feedback. Lisa, I love that I'm cracking you up. Keep it coming for me. For some people, for some of your employees, that's going to engage them. That's going to give them this fire to, wow, Kim's happy and I just got recognized in front of the entire company. I'm good to go. But for your analytical communicators, think of Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory. For those of you that don't know who he is a perfect over the top example of the analytical communicator. Their strengths are factual. I'm going to ask a question and actively listen to what you say. I'm going to be very clear and concise. Cassie, how was your day at interning at Miss Bridget's kindergarten class? It was wonderful. We read Dr. Seuss and the kids seemed to enjoy it. All the fluff is gone. Once again, it doesn't mean that they're not friendly and they can't talk with people, but they're going to focus more on the facts. Instead of jumping into a conversation, I want to take a step back and I want to listen to what's going on. Now, what some of their challenges are is building that rapport. A lot of times people may feel that they are very professional. As a leader, think about your communication style. Has anyone said, it's difficult to talk with you sometimes? I feel that you're always analyzing or judging what I'm saying. And you may just be intently listening to them. That positive feedback, those analytical communicators like to focus on the facts. And a lot of times they think it's your job. It's what you're paid to do. Why do I need to give you positive feedback for doing your job? Now, if you do something amazing and blow me away, then I'll give you some feedback on it. Other than that, if I don't tell you what you're not doing right, you're good to go. But think about who they're working with. If they're working with someone who's that relational communicator, they need to hear it. If you're that relational communicator, they don't want that general praise. Your analyticals say, yeah, 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 I've just heard you tell 5 other people, great job. It means nothing to me. Tell me what I did that was great. Carrie, I love how you found 2 graphics from pop culture that symbolizes these 2 communication styles perfectly. Clear, concise, to the point. Does it come naturally to me? Absolutely not. Do I do it? Yes, because that's what's important to the person I'm talking with. And empathy can sometimes be difficult for that analytical person. Not because they don't care, but because where does this how does this fall into the workplace? Or yes, it is a problem that, this is that we're shorthanded. We're working on it. But by saying it is a problem that we're shorthanded, and I know that the team is taking on a lot of extra steps and we are working our best to find someone, but instead of just hiring someone, we want to make sure that we have the best person possible. That little bit of empathy recognizes the struggle that your teams are going through or the individual is going through. It's not excusing bad behaviors, it's not excusing what stress may be happening, but it allows them to understand that, okay, we're in this together. We're both fully engaged with each other. And once again, there's not a good or bad communication style. It's knowing how you communicate and who you are. So, trust killer number 2. I've forgotten what it's like not to be the boss. Think about it. By a show of hands, how many of you have been in a management position or a leadership position for 3 or more years? So I see some hands going up. Perfect, perfect. About half of you are looking to be in leadership, and you've been in leadership for 3 or more years. Think how difficult it is now to transition. So a lot of times, the longer that you are in that management position, you're in the know. And it ties right back into that under communicating. You know a lot of what's going on. So you expect everybody else to know what's going on. The problem is that they don't always know. So we, as leaders, we may have a tendency to speak in shorthand. Yeah, this has been going on. Okay, I need this project done in a week. A week? Well, you've known it's been coming for 6 months. No, no, I didn't. Oh, wait, I knew it's been coming for 6 months. Or you forget what it's like to be with that group of people where, once again, remember under communicating where there's a lack of information, rumors thrive. And as rumors thrive, people who may come to you and say, hey, what's going on with this? Where did you hear that? Well, your employee isn't going to say, well, Susie down the hall said it because they don't want to get their peer in trouble. So remember to take your management hat off to become part of the team. When you're speaking to your employees, it doesn't always have to be strictly about work and responsibilities. Get to know them, understand who they are, recognize their work, recognize that they don't have to work for you, that they're there because they want to, that there are other jobs out there. And there's nothing worse than having a disengaged employee in your office. And if you're not communicating with them, if you're not getting their feedback, because a lot of times the people who are in the trenches are going to be able to really give you that communication. They're going to be able to tell you what's working, what's not working. And you may or may not be able to change it, but you're going to be able to hear it. And a lot of times, what's coming from the information coming from the person doing the job could radically change the processes and success of the company. I know here at Omnia, whenever we hire, we ask a peer, a top performer in that role, to sit down and talk with the candidate. The questions that they ask every single time they ask something that I go, wow, why didn't I think of that? I manage this department. But I don't think about it because I'm not living it and breathing it every single day. Be a part of that. And then also understand what your role is. So, whether it's communication for 400 people or one to one, everybody has a role. And those two roles are either you're going to be the sender or you're going to be the receiver. The sender is the person talking, they're the one communicating their idea. The sender's role is that they need to understand that am I expressing the topic in a way that's easy to understand? Don't use jargon. Don't, well, so we're having issues with our ACH department really looking at EFT transfers. And so that's going to affect the POS transactions that are showing up on a client's account. What? Your employees may know that, but remember that different jargon means something different to each person. Unless it's something that's very specific to your company and your department, don't use the jargon. Speak plainly. Also, at times when we're the sender and it's a meeting, we feel like we have to slip into that formal presentation mode. So we may use words that we typically don't use. So the next topic on today's agenda is understanding and facilitating customer service feedback. What? Oh, we're going to talk about the customer service surveys that go out every month, and we're going to get those results. So know your receiver, know your audience, and there are times that you have to communicate in a more formal manner. But make sure that the receiver is hearing what's being said clearly and concisely. And once again, remember that they're hearing it through their own perspective, their own perception filters. I used to work with someone who, after she explained anything, she always ended it with, "Does that make sense?" For her, that was her words of saying, "Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you have any questions?" For me, I'm like, I'm not stupid. Yeah, it makes complete sense to me. And it was almost offensive to me at times. So we have to understand that check-in. Also, in the course of a 5-minute conversation, your role could change from sender to receiver 10 or more times. Because as soon as you stop talking, then you need to you become the role of the receiver, which means that when your mouth is closed, your ears are open. As the receiver, your ears are open, your mouth is closed, and you're actively engaged in listening to what they have to say. Take notes. If you find that you're that person who wants to interrupt, hey, I'm going to take some notes. Give some of those feedback. Restate, and then as soon as the sender is done, restate what you've heard, especially if it's a conversation that there could be that conflict. Because when you do that and you understand that information, then you're going to understand your roles. And regardless of which side of the conversation you're on, whether you're the sender or the receiver, you know your role. You actively listen if you're that receiver, but you're also aware of those nonverbal clues. You need to know the other person's stress level and their triggers as well. So think about that. For me, the trigger of, does that make sense? I automatically would, yeah, I'm not dumb. That makes perfect sense. And my walls went up. It's kind of like asking a faulty question. How you could rephrase that is, do you have any questions? Does it mean the same? And some people say, well, you're just playing with words. No, I'm not. I'm giving you some word phrases that's going to help you not stick your foot in your mouth, which I've done in my 20 years of managing people too many times to count. Thankfully, every time I learn from it. So I'm sharing with you and avoiding those mistakes in the future. Also, when I say know your triggers, don't let your inner Neanderthal pick your words. When we're mad, frustrated, stressed out, the words that we say, the things that we do, the nonverbal communication that we give could be something completely different than what we communicate. What we may be thinking is, I need to process this. The other person is taking it with, she didn't like what I had to say. Making sure that if you're speaking with someone and you know that their stress levels is raising, maybe it's a difficult conversation for both of you, and voices are being raised and hands are being clenched and the verbal language is just, don't talk to me. Take a time out. Okay, it looks like we need to process this information. Let's talk about next steps and let's touch base in the next 5 minutes. As a leader, if you know you're a processor and you're not immediately going to have information for them, say, okay, thank you for this information. What I want to do is think about it and get back with you. Let's go ahead and set a date. Because when you say, I'll get back with you, it's open-ended. What typically happens, you don't get back to them. And then you've said something, you haven't followed through with it, it damages their trust in you, in your integrity, and in your authentic communication. But by saying, let me process this, let me understand it, let me get back with you, how about tomorrow at 3:30? That's going to say, okay, I've been heard. They're going to think of some solutions, and we have a close date to revisit it. Very important to always follow up with what you want your team to take away. So real quick, once again, a check-in. So how much meaning of a spoken statement comes from the actual words that you speak? Do you think it's 75%, 7%, 20%? Go ahead and select one. And then the next question I have for you is, what's the number one way you communicate with employees? So think about your day. Do you constantly send emails? Are you talking on the phone? Maybe you're talking through the walls. We have some, hey, Kim, yeah, Carrie, what's up? Do you have that presentation? Not the most effective if you have an open floor plan, but it works. Maybe it's via email or Skype. The employees that you work with are remote. That's a completely different set of situations. So now you're just Skyping with them. So about 53% of you think that the spoken statement comes from the actual words that you speak. It's actually 7%. 7% of my communication comes from the words I say. The number one way that you communicate, overwhelmingly, it's about 63% talking, but we're seeing that email is becoming a strong second. And in some instances, once again, with that Skyping, remote employees, off-site consultants, we're seeing that email is on the rise. So if email is on the rise, or maybe you pick up the phone and talk with them, you have just lost 93% of your communication. Because we have the nonverbal, and then we also have whether the tone. I can say, thanks, Carrie, for the comment, or thanks, Carrie, for commenting. Same words, right? But two different meanings. One is like, oh, great, I really appreciate that feedback. And some of it is like, yeah, why are you even commenting? Keep it to yourself. A lot of times how we communicate in those nonverbal ways is by using groups of behaviors. Maybe it's the facial expressions, the eye rollings, the thinning lips, gestures. And we have to be very careful with gestures. As our workplace culture becomes more diversified, we're seeing a greater, the culture's merging, but think about the gestures that you use. A thumbs up in America means hey, you did something right, A-OK. In other cultures, it means not the same thing. It's almost like the same as giving them the single finger salute, which we don't want to do. Or the OK sign here is great. But if you use it with someone, whether you have an international company or someone who's just has that cultural diversity, it could be a severe insult. So being very careful about your gestures. And I struggle with that. I use my hands a lot. I am a talker, but you have to be very careful about the gestures that you use. Also, paralinguistics, and that's really the tone of voice beyond your basic speech. Like I said, ooh, hey, I really like that shirt. I really like that shirt. Your tone's going to tell you a lot. Your body language and posture. Are you sitting with crossed arms? Are you slouching? In the midst of someone talking to you, do you lean back? That could show disinterest. Maybe you lean forward. Some people can take that as a sign of aggression. Proxemics. Proxemics are that really talking about that body space, like how that uses space. For some people, we have, okay, your space is 5 feet away from my space. For other people, it's closer than that. And then as I read this great article, it talks about the space shuffle that happens. So think about, have you ever worked with someone who you feel is invading your personal space? So you take a step back, and then they follow you with a step forward. So then you take another step back, and they take another step forward. Is that whole what's my personal space and what that parameters is very different than what someone else's parameters are. We have to understand what that is. Making sure we're keeping that eye contact, and if you don't keep that eye contact, letting them know why. Carrie and I work together with a ton of presentations, and one of the together to talk about if we're talking and I'm really concentrating, I'm not going to look at you because I need to kind of just concentrate. And if I keep looking at you, then I get about something. And she, her elbows on her desk, her fingers on her temples, and she's listening intently, but she's not. And that is how we communicate. That's something that works for her. Is she listening? Is she meditating? Am I not being clear and concise enough for her? What's going on? People like that eye contact. Other people don't. You really have to. It's like it's because I use my hands so much. I'm distracted back to me. But anyway, uh, we laugh and joke a lot, but we have that open communication. If you know you have that face that when you're in the middle of a concentration, it's just not a resting mad face because, I'm just deep in thought and someone walks up, let people know. Listen, if you walk to the door and I look up and I'm giving you, it seems like a dirty look, trust me, I'm not. Give me a moment to adjust to who I'm talking to. But being open and honest about your communication quirks, especially those nonverbal ones, you're beginning to build that trust. You're letting your employee know, listen, I don't expect anyone to be perfect. I'm not perfect. This is how it's going to happen. This is what we're going to do. So let's move forward with it. Also understanding the haptics, the use of touch. Once again, with some people are huggers, some people aren't. And in the workplace, you have to be very careful about that. But understanding if someone like it high fives and other people are just like, yeah, do the air high five because I'm a germaphobe. I don't want to touch anybody. Read those nonverbal clues. If it's you, give those nonverbal clues so that they understand as well. And just really understand that the appearance of what you say, how you look, can mean somebody. So if you do something, like a lot of times I'll sit with my arms crossed, it doesn't mean anything other than I'm cold. But I'm very conscious of the way the rest of my body language looks. Am I shaking my head? Am I making those verbal affirmations? I'm hearing what you say. Sometimes I'll even throw out there, "Woo, it's cold in here today, isn't it?" Just for someone else to go, "Oh, okay. Maybe she's not mad at me. Maybe she's just cold as well." Also, think about those silent messages that you send out. So, real quick, a silent message is something that you do that's different, that sends out a message that may contradict what you say. So, some of those silent messages, let's think about this. What do you think some of those silent messages may be? Could it be typing on the phone or on the keyboard when someone walks in? I'm multitasking. Hey, can I talk to you? Sure, come on in. And I'm going to keep typing, make eye contact, look back down, make eye contact, look back down. I like the cold stares, the rolling of your eyes. What about just you're talking with someone and your phone rings and you go, hold on a moment, let me get this. Hey, yeah, Susan, I'll get back with you. I'm in a meeting right now with Pamela. I've just told Pamela, you're not as important to me as my ringing phone. Someone comes in to talk with you and it's a scheduled meeting and your office is you've got papers all over the place and you know what they're coming for and now you're searching through your paperwork to find out what we need to talk about. I like that, looking at me with your glasses up and your head cocked down. It's that might just be the way that they see, but it's that silent message is that, and what's going on with you? The other thing is making sure like you're not answering emails, that when you go to talk with someone, even if it's that casual, hey, can I talk to you real quick? Throw your phone on D&D. That lets them know that you're important to them. Don't, once again, with technology, what's the thing that everybody likes to play with in a meeting, in a conversation that has now become an extension of our hand? The cell phone. Yes, Susan, you win the prize. A lot of times it's unconscious, but think about it. When you go out to dinner, observe what's going on around you. I have teenagers in my house and a husband who's a youth pastor who works with teenagers. All of them, we can be sitting somewhere and all of them are on the phone. I consciously have to say, okay, this is a no phone zone. Put the cell phones away. We're going to have a family dinner because it's such a part of our culture and who we are, that the silent message is that I can't talk to you. I have to type to you. I've literally seen my two twin daughters, one sitting on the love seat, one sitting on the couch, talking to each other via text. We have mouths. Let's use them, because you lose something in text messages, right? And the emojis don't always cut it. I can say something that's really offensive and put a smiley face at the end of it, and guess what? It's still going to be offensive. Or maybe I say something and the person who receives it perception is, there's tone in this text or there's tone in this email, and I'm going to shoot it right back to you because it's easier to respond that way. But we let our perception. So if you receive an email, you receive a text, you receive some sort of written communication that's like that, I encourage you to pick up the phone, or better yet, go to that person and say, okay, this is how I perceive this. Am I getting, let's talk this through. What was your meaning about it? Because a lot of times it might be, yeah, there was some tone to it, but I thought I was getting some tone from you. You weren't getting tone from me. Oh, Okay, well then I'm sorry, then I didn't mean to give you tone. It's because you're losing all the tone, you're losing the nonverbal, all you're getting are the words, and 7% of how we communicate are the words that we say. So to create that authentic communication, understand the best way to communicate with that person. Maybe it is via email, but you follow it up with a conversation. Or maybe it's that conversation and then you shoot a quick email to say, okay, as a recap. But nothing can replace that human contact. People trust people. They don't trust computers. They can't build that relational bond. And that relational bond is what 60% of your employees say that they want with their managers. If they're actively engaged, if they trust what you say, they will follow you anywhere. And if you hear nothing else that I say, hear that. Think about someone that you trust implicitly, that they say what they do what they say, they're going to tell you the truth, they're going to speak into your life, they've given you mentoring advice, they've told you when you're wrong, they've held you accountable. Now, how many of you are willing to follow that person and do what they ask you to do, even if you don't completely understand it? And I'm seeing hands being raised. It's because you trust the person. And when you think about it, companies are made up of people. So as a leader, as a manager, you are the face of that company. And if you're not communicating well, then they're going to leave you. And absolutely, Kevin, employees don't leave their companies, they leave their managers. So watch your silent messages, and they could be unintentional. I had someone who said, you know what, when a conversation goes on too long, I just stand up. And that tells the other person I'm done. And I'm like, yes, that's very intentional. Had another person who said I had to have a conversation with someone I worked with because she would always stand in the doorway and I felt trapped. So I was like, could you not always stand in my doorway? Could you maybe come in the office? Because standing in my doorway for 20 minutes makes me feel like, okay, you're not going anywhere until I'm done with you. By having that simple conversation, it opened up the lines and the empathy and the engagement between those two people where there was a conflict before. Trust killer number 3 is asking those leading questions. So those leading questions, the yeah, but. So let's talk about this. Do you really think this? Or I think the best way to move forward is to take steps A, B, and C. Do you agree with that? Well, as a manager, of course they're going to go, okay, yes, I do agree with that. And I hear a lot of times from leaders, yeah, but I know what needs to happen. But when you talk with the people and you get their opinion, one, you may find out a better way to do what needs to happen. But you also build that engagement. Now I'm part of the solution. I'm part of the team. I'm not being dictated to. Because I know a lot of people who say, if you tell me what to do, I don't want to do it just because I don't want to do it because you told me to do it. But if they feel like they're a part of it, they're engaged and they want to do it. People don't always say what they mean. And I hear, yeah, but I know what they really mean. No, you hear what your perception is of what they really mean. Doesn't mean that you really know what you mean. Okay, so read with me. A walk in the park. How many of you saw the extra the in the park? Raise your hands if you saw the extra the on the form. See some hands going up. Some people are like, what? There was an extra the? I thought that was a typo. It wasn't a typo, I promise. So a lot of times when you are hearing, your brain filters out the information that is unimportant to you. It may be very important to the sender, but to you, your brain naturally filters out. So B was unimportant. Your brain's like, I know it's not going to be a walk in the, so it's a walk in the park. End of story. By listening, actively engaged listening, and for some people that is taking notes. For other people, it's Control Alt deleting everything, putting the phone on D&D, gazing intently at that person, making those nods, restating what that person has said, and moving forward with it. Whichever way it is for you, listening is key for this. Because if you're not listening, you're missing out on something very, very important. So, because of that, hope everyone has a piece of paper because we're going to take a little bit of a listening test. I'm going to read some questions to you. And when I read these questions, I want you to answer them. I will not repeat the question, and then we will score them. Okay. So write number 1 on your paper and answer this question. In this list of names, George, John, David, Adam, James, and Grace, which names begin with a J? Underneath your answer, write number 2A and 2B. Suppose you were given these directions. Go to room 315 and look in the lower right drawer and bring me all the boxes of pencils that are left there. 2A, would you look in the right or left-hand drawer? And 2B, would you go to room 531, 315, or 135? Number 3, answer true or false to this. In the list of words, be, see, free, glee, flee, me, the second word mentioned is free. Number 4, your spouse asks you to bring home meat, milk, cheese, bread. You bring home milk, peas, bread, and meat. What did you forget? Number 5. You are the driver of a school bus. At the first stop, 13 children get on. At the next stop, 5 children get on and 2 get off. At the next stop, 8 children get on. And at the next stop, 4 more get on and 1 sneaks off. How old is the bus driver? So let's score it. Give yourself 20 points if you wrote John and James. 10 points if you said the right drawer for 2A, 10 points if you said room 315 for 2B, 20 points if you said false for number 3, the second word is C, 20 points if you said you forgot the cheese, and 20 points if you wrote your age down. Now score yourself. If you got 100%, excellent, you listen. If 90%, you're a good listener. 80, you're fair. You can improve. Sorry, Olive, I lost her at George. 70, you need help, and 60 or below, wow. Really work on what's keeping you from listening. Is it that the person is speaking too quickly? And you need to say, okay, can you? Or is it that because we're just engaged in everything else around us? So final thoughts is, how do you create a genuine connection? 1, pay attention to nonverbal signs. Concentrate on your tone of voice when speaking. Make sure you're using good eye contact, or if it distracts you, no eye contact, but be upfront about that. Ask questions about nonverbal signals. And then remember, it's all about perspective, perspective, perspective. Your perspective may be that you're communicating terrifically. The receiver's perspective is that there are holes in this road of communication. The art of communication is the language of leadership. James Hume said that, and he was a speechwriter for many of our past presidents. And what better role to really end on is that as a leader, understanding how you communicate is going to build your employees' trust. Understanding how they receive it is going to influence their engagement. and then moving forward with it is going to help you build that team. So we have a couple of moments. We are going to have some handouts for you. Also, some tips to avoid both verbal and nonverbal. But as we're taking some time for questions, we have the downloads that I talked to you about, the communication tips to avoid, our presentation. Go ahead and type in any questions that you may have. At this point, we will leave this up a little bit to allow you to download those things once we're finished. One question that I'm typically asked is, how do I really understand what my communication style is? Well, you can use tools such as behavioral assessments like the Omnia that will give you information. Also, get some feedback from peers, direct reports. If you do any type of employee feedback, listen to it and what they have to say. I love that what Olive shared that said, you know, I'm a good listener and caring. Um, and ask us, tell us how we're doing. Tell me what are some of the feedback. Exit interview great as well to say if someone's leaving, what could we do better? We understand that, and we want that. Um, I see people that are typing, touching base real quick of asking about feedback. Give us some feedback. Let us know how we're doing on Facebook.com. Also, we are asked, typically asked, is that how how do I make sure that I'm engaging the employee that I seem to just have a complete disconnection to? I should be able to communicate with everyone. And ideally, yes, we want to adapt our styles, but there are some people that you're not going to be able to communicate with 100% of the time effectively. It's finding that best way to communicate with them, whether via email, and understanding that sometimes their disengagement isn't always because of a lack of authentic communication, it's because they're just not happy. And that time you have to have that conversation. Once again, the good, the bad, the ugly is what can I do to help you become great at what you're doing or help you find something that you'll be great at. I know that we are out of time now. Thank you so much for being a part of our webinar. We have another one next month. I hope to see you out. Check out our e-learning, and we do have some promo codes for attending this webinar. And on behalf of Carrie and myself, thank you so much for attending, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you and have a great I just was told, wait. Okay, so I think we have a question. One last question before we move forward. Yeah. Any tips on approaching an employee who just makes you feel like you're bothering them or they've been here longer so don't feel they have to listen? Yes. I recommend is to take them to ask them, hey, can we sit down? Maybe take them to coffee, take them to lunch, take them outside of that workplace where they have that territorial feeling and then just say, I want to get to know you. I want to learn from you've been here longer. I want to get to know your pulse of the land and how can I communicate with them by taking them outside of that workplace environment. One, it helps lower the defenses a little bit. And two, you may find out that they are defensive, but they're defensive or not quite as open to you because of something that's outside of something that you may have caused or not caused, but that you can have that genuine conversation with them and find out what's going on and then use that as a building block. I'm upset because I didn't get promoted. Talking to that supervisor about why they didn't get promoted and then coming alongside them and giving them that feedback and helping them develop is going to be key. So I think that was our last question. Thank you once again. We're going to leave this up for a few minutes. And everyone have a wonderful day. Thank you.